Hello everyone, it's so good to be here yet again. It's going to be a very interesting time right now in Montreal for cinema goers because it is the Fantasia Film Festival that is on right now until the 4th of August, if I'm not mistaken. And tonight was the film premiere of one of my most anticipated films for quite a while, honestly. This would be Shelby Oaks, the debut filmmaking attempt from none other than Chris Stuckman, who's a bit of a YouTuber extraordinaire. He's been working on his YouTube channel for I don't know how long now, like 10 plus years or so. I'm relatively late to the party, but in any case, I know that he's been working on Shelby Oaks for roughly like 5 years now or so. And it's been quite the journey following the production of this film. Most notably, the Kickstarter that raised just shy of $1.4 million, which is just, wow, a phenomenal achievement. And then later on, Mike Flanagan, of all people, decided to join the bandwagon to help out in any way, shape, or form. And yes, both Chris Stuckman and Mike Flanagan showed up at the Fantasia Film Festival. More on that later. That was indeed a nice surprise. In the most recent news, as if all that weren't already enough, it seems that Neon is adding this film, Shelby Oaks, into their roster as well. So that is an incredible success. The hype is clearly through the roof on this one. So much so actually that I'm totally glad that I got my tickets like way in advance. I don't know, it was like a month plus. Literally the second I heard that the tickets were on sale, literally instantly went to get them. And boy am I glad I did, because when I got there on site, there was already a gigantic lineup even though I showed up an hour early, and more and more people kept pouring in. Gotta say, the atmosphere in the theater room was just electric. People were applauding before the film, during the film, and after the film with thunderous applause. I do want to highlight that, especially for someone like me who goes to the cinema like 2, sometimes 3 times a week, I've been exposed to quite a lot of different experiences, big crowds, small crowds, film premiere nights and whatnot, and it's rare that you ever feel such an energy in the room. Clearly, it felt like everyone who was there was a fan of Chris Stuckman, and we were all there to just hype him up and to see what he's been working on for such a long time. And this video is going to be rather unique because, not that I would spoil anything on any film, of course, but Chris Stuckman himself, before the film started and after, kindly reminded us, don't tell anyone anything, as little as possible about this film, please. So of course I'm going to make the extra effort to not only be as brief as possible, but to talk in as macro and as vague terms as possible, because there's quite a lot of surprises that I don't want to spoil at all for you guys. But on the highest level, what you can expect going into this film is that this is a deep dive into a horror genre. This is quite an intriguing mystery that deals with the supernatural, and in comparison to many films which are very passive experiences, this I found to be a supremely engaging film-going experience. I was wide-eyed the whole time, just scouring the screen for any clues, details that I thought might be relevant to the story. And this doesn't only apply to the visual details, which are plentiful, but the sound as well was quite mesmerizing as well. And of course, this being a horror film, it is quite scary and unsettling. I don't think this is necessarily the scariest film ever made, though take that with a grain of salt, because I am somewhat biased, seeing that I'm rather battle-hardened from all the horror films and horror games that I've exposed myself to over the years. But even if you don't find this particularly scary, I don't think anyone will argue with the fact that this is a very moody and atmospheric experience, and quite deliciously so. In fact, I'm rather blown away by how much this film achieves with this relatively modest budget. Yes, the Kickstarter was a gigantic and historic success, but even so, $1.4 million budget is relatively low for this kind of style of film. And I do find that Shelby Oaks displays quite a rich production value. All that to say that this is a very convincing mirage, masking the fact that this is very much a DIY project, which I guess is the highest praise this kind of film could get. So as you can tell, I'm pretty much glowing about this film. Though in the spirit of constructive criticism, if there are a few things I would bring up, is that as far as the mystery goes, I did find that I was piecing together the mystery a little bit sooner than the protagonists themselves. There were a few moments when they're finally getting their aha moment where I was like, yeah, like, the clues were there you go, you're figuring out for yourself now. But of course, this doesn't ruin the experience, and believe me, there's still quite a few surprises that I don't think you'll see coming. And finally, there are these 2 eye roll moments that affected not only myself, but pretty much everyone else in the crowd. I remember everyone kind of like groaned and like laughed at these moments. It's not a terrible sin. If anything, it was a comedic respite from an otherwise eerie and unsettling film. But these are tropes we've seen so many times in past horror films, so it's kind of like, oh, really, we're doing this? But I digress. So going into this film, I literally had zero expectation. I always try going with a blank slate into any film, really. But indeed, there was a lot of hype. All I needed to know was that this was a Chris Stuckman film. It was his directorial debut, and this is a project that's been cooking for quite a long time. So I was genuinely curious to see how it turned out, and I just want to be there day one to just fan the flames and to just be there to support him. And this turned out as great as all of us hoped it would be, and then some. So I think this is all the potential to become a bit of an indie horror hit. So as far as I'm concerned, this is easily an 8.5 out of 10. Once again, Neon picked up this film. This is fresh news, so distribution into cinema will be coming sometime in 2025 as far as I can tell, to be determined when that will happen. But whenever it does finally come into a theater near you, go check it out and get Stuckmanized, as I'm sure he will say in one of his videos soon enough. It totally has been worth the wait, and I'm super stoked about him. And as a final comment about the Fantasia Film Festival experience, and just seeing Chris Stuckman walking around the streets outside Concordia, just to see the giant crowd that was lined up to see his film, and seeing just how casual and sweet and down to earth he was about the whole thing, and having a bit of an intro speech from not only him but also Mike Flanagan, and then also coming back later for a Q&A session with not only him and Mike Flanagan but a bunch of the cast and crew members, not the entire crew of course, but quite a few actually. Honestly, it was a super fun experience. Once again, super down to earth, super open and sweet, and it was really an amazing experience for all of us fans over there, on top of the fact just getting blessed with a really great horror film. And as a final surprise, I did not think that Chris Stuckman was that tall. Not that it has any consequence on anything whatsoever, but it kind of took me off guard. God damn. And as a final note, it was cool to run into my buddy once again, totally unscripted, out of the blue like this. So we should definitely officially catch up one of these days. It seems the stars are aligning in very interesting ways. So with all that being said, wishing you and your loved ones nothing but the best. Take care and talk to you soon.